Okay, I see that it's 6:02. I'd like to bring us together with just a moment of prayer as we dive into our pre-convention discussion here this evening on Zoom. Let's take just a moment of quiet and bring into God's presence all that we have been about today, those with whom we interacted and shared our lives in different ways. Let's bring to God whatever awaits us this evening following this meeting. Let's lift up to the Lord those who are near and dear to us, who we might be thinking about in a special way today or praying for one reason or another. Take a moment and bring them to God. O God, you've made us in your own image and redeemed us through Jesus, your Son. Look with compassion on the whole human family. Take away the arrogance and hatred which can infect our hearts. Break down the walls that separate us. Unite us in bonds of love, and work through our struggle and confusion to accomplish your purposes on earth. That in your good time, all nations and races may serve you in harmony around your heavenly throne. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
O God, by your grace, you've called us in this diocese to a goodly fellowship of faith. Bless our provisional Bishop Jeffrey and all the clergy and all your people. Grant that your word may be truly preached and truly heard, your sacraments faithfully administered and faithfully received. By your Spirit, fashion our lives according to the example of your Son. And grant that we may show the power of your love to all among whom we live. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. For those of you I haven't met or who don't know me, my name is Scott Leanna. And my role in the diocese is that of canon for ministries. And that means I work with parishes that are searching for clergy leadership. I work with lay leaders in vestry. I try to reach out and work with clergy. And then there's just all the other duties as assigned that are part of my role. And I'm grateful for it. What I'd like to do this evening for this pre-convention meeting is to simply walk through with you the pending resolutions that lie before us. I think we have some representatives to kind of speak to each of those resolutions with us in our meeting tonight. And the purpose in doing this, of course, is so that you're not blindsided the day of convention, and so that you have an opportunity to ask questions if you have any. And then following the presentation of the resolutions, we'll just have then an opportunity for just kind of questions in general. Okay. There was not a written or a electronic agenda sent out to you, but I believe pending in front of this coming convention are 4 resolutions, if I'm correct. And in no particular order, why don't we deal first with the resolution that we have around deacons in our diocese and providing a minimum stipend for them in order to really open for them the door to a wide number of benefits and opportunities afforded by the church pension fund through the national church. Right now on my screen, I know that there are a couple screens worth of faces, but one face I see, at least in my screen, is Don Fleischman. And I know Don is a co-sponsor of this, and perhaps Deacon Bill Dunlop is here as well. And it looks like in the chat, Sarah, is that the resolution that you've posted?
That's all the resolutions. They're grouped together.
Wonderful. So that document in the chat is all of the resolutions grouped together. I wonder, Don, since you're the one I see,
Yep.
and if Deacon Bill is here as well, I'm not sure. But Don, if you could speak to this resolution and kind of walk us through it.
Yeah, Deacon Bill he wanted to be here this evening, but I believe, is traveling back from Texas right now after baptizing his grandson yesterday. Right. So, yeah, you can look at the details of the resolution. Father Scott has, summarized it. It's not a complicated resolution. The Church Pension Fund, a few years ago, made a mechanism by which deacons of the church could receive some of the benefits of the pension fund with a very nominal annual stipend paid to them. That stipend is $300 a year. And so they'll get things like access to Credo, ongoing education and formation and retreat. They get access to some of the retirement benefits. It's nothing major, because most of our deacons are non-stipendiary anyway. They get access to these Planning for Tomorrow weekends that we have every 7 to 8 years in the diocese with the pension group, just for a stipend of $300 a year. You'll also see in the resolution, and if Caroline sends here, she can speak to the financial piece of the resolution more. As it's written right now, the diocese would be picking up the tab for all active and assigned parochial deacons in the diocese for this year. And actually, you're allowed to date it back a couple of years. So any deacon who was active as of January 1st, 2019 would get makeup payments so that they would have essentially years of service credited to them from 2019 on. So Carolyn could speak specifically. I can't see that. I don't see her on my screen, but.
Hi, Father Don, I'm absolutely here. And the budget approved by the Executive Council in August for 2023 does include the complete restitution of previous years, and also for the 2023 year as well. So the complete amount submitted by Deacon Bill Dunlop for the estimation was absolutely included and approved in the diocesan budget.
Thank you. And the thinking on that, folks, is that deacons really are assigned their ministry by the ecclesiastical authority, by the bishop, or through the diocese, the diocesan leadership. And so it would make sense then, we thought, that diocesan leadership, that the diocese, if you will, would pay that stipend. Okay. I suspect if you are in a parish that works with deacons, you know what a gift and a blessing their ministry and service and dedication is. Even if you're not in a parish with a deacon right now, you ought to know that their ministry, their service, their willingness to serve God's people is a gift and a blessing. And this seems like kind of one way that we can express some gratitude and some support for them. Okay. Questions about this resolution? I suspect this one is going to be pretty much what they call a slam dunk. But if there are any questions about this, we'll certainly entertain them, and we can direct them to Father Don at this time. Gracie or Sarah, I'm not sure who's monitoring that. Gracie is. If you see any questions, Gracie, just call in, folks. Otherwise, I think this one's pretty straightforward. Yeah, Deacon Chuck Zellermeyer.
I apologize. I'm on my phone, so I don't see where the comment button is. My only question is a finance one. My understanding in conversation with Deacon Bill, this will not be afforded, and understandably, to those deacons who are over the age of 72. So with that said, will the diocese still have to pay a stipend to those deacons who will not be able to utilize this?
I think my understanding, Chuck, it's Caroline speaking, is that it's around deacons who are under the retirement age who can still, be eligible to participate in some of those auxiliary CPG benefits.
Good. So the diocese won't have to pay for old guys like me.
Yeah, because the whole thing really is just around enabling the eligibility of people to participate in CPG benefits. And if you're retired, of course, then as far as I understand it, then you're not able to after that point. Although please correct me if you think I'm wrong about that.
No, I would hope you're right about that. I mean, that sounds correct to me.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
I see no other questions in the chat and no other hands are raised.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to, why don't we take a look at the resolution regarding creation care. And we have some folks here who can speak to that. I see Deacon Greg Schneider. There may be others as well. And again, this is contained in the documents that Sarah Bittner has included in the chat section of our meeting tonight.
Okay.
Deacon Greg, would you like to speak to the creation care resolution?
Yes, the diocese created the Commission on Creation Care at last year's convention. And we've taken this year to kind of organize ourselves, get ourselves grounded in our faith and ecology and creation. And so have begun to work to put together a lot of resources to go on a web page. And so those things we're working to get up hopefully by convention time. And this is actually a continuing resolution that will continue the Commission on Creation Care for at least the next 5 years, but also provide us with a budget so that we can provide some teachers or theological presentations on how creation fits into our faith, as well as hopefully working with the diocese to provide some grant funding to churches as they begin to work on creation care within their congregations. So this is just a continuing resolution to keep the commission going for the next 5 years.
All right, thank you. Gracie, are you seeing any questions or any indications of questions on this?
Excuse me, Tom Curtis calling from St. Albans. Can you explain to me what you mean by creation care? I'm sorry, I missed that. It's a very ambiguous statement.
It is. It's looking at how we as Christians are called by God to care for his creation, to the environment and everything living and non-living around us. And there are a lot of ways that we can work together to begin to repair some of the damage that's been done, to put things in place to make to help the environment better, to take care of our other non-human neighbors. And so it's really looking at a lot of different things. It's also looking at a way to help support maybe congregations to reduce their carbon footprint. And there are a lot of ways that can happen. So it's really taking a look at, the environment around us, and all of God's creation.
All right, I see a question in the comments section from Father Andy Jones. Is funding for the creation care resolution included in the 2023 budget? And Caroline Sen has responded, yes, $10,000. Okay. And Valerie, we'll get back to your point in just a moment. All right, anything else? Gracie, are you seeing anything else on creation care or the resolution?
I have a question.
I saw Bobby Kraft's hand up earlier, the Reverend Bobby Kraft. No, you're good. Okay.
I think Connie, were you just gonna say something?
Yes. Has the Creation Care Committee discussed any type of support for parishes that are getting solar?
There are a lot of groups out there that do provide some support for churches getting solar, and we'll share that information out. But as far as at this point, the Commission on Creation Care doesn't have that kind of funding to be able to do that, to help with the solar. But we can begin to connect you with organizations that can help support that.
Not even in a token response.
When they apply for grant,
Pardon?
I'm just wondering if, like, under this
What I
resolution, they can apply for grant.
hear Deacon Greg saying is that the group, Connie and Tom, can begin to make available some information and resources. And if this grows into something larger along those lines, I think they're certainly open to that.
I think we have. It's just that it would show the support of the diocese for that type of project.
Right.
Okay.
With that,
If it was a token.
as we look at some of the support that the Commission will offer to parishes to help support a project in creation care, that could be a piece of that, could be looking at solar or getting an energy audit of your building completed to make your building as energy efficient as possible as you move on to solar in the future. We're looking at grants available out there, and with the new government funding for alternative energies, we may have some opportunities to apply for some funds there which we can then use to support congregations.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
I have a question. Greg, how do I get a question in?
Pardon?
I have a question.
A question to the creation?
Yes, about the committee. I have a dear friend who works on getting, I live in Shorewood, getting all of the public properties unchemicalized, no, what's the word I'm looking for? No fertilizers,
Mhm.
no toxic golf course
Right.
and stuff. And so just even for parishes to be able to share with each other what they've used or what they've done, I would imagine would be very supportive without having to cost a lot of money. I don't mean to take up time with
Right.
that, but I was just with her Saturday, so
Right.
on my mind.
We do have an email address, which is creationcare@diomil.org. So it's
Okay.
creationcare@thedioceseofmilwaukee.org.
Okay,
All right. And I see Sarah Bittner, Communications Officer, has just put that into the chat. Diane, so that email is right there. If you hit the chat section
Thank
of our
you.
Zoom meeting, you'll see that the email address is right there.
thank you.
Right.
Okay.
Also, the province 4 and 5 has the creation care group that meets on a monthly basis. So if you go to province 5 website, you can link into their creation care information. And of course, the International Church has, their website has information on creation care there also.
All right. Thank you. Valerie, I think we'll save your question for when we have questions at the end. I'd like to look at the next resolution now regarding minimum clergy compensation. Our diocesan financial controller, Caroline Sen, Caroline, if you could present that resolution.
Absolutely. In looking at what we were going to suggest as the resolution around minimum clergy compensation, I looked at all the other dioceses that I could get information from around what they were doing. I looked at federal benchmarks. I looked at Social Security Administration benchmarks. I looked at Wisconsin benchmarks. We don't yet have access to the Social Security Administration recommendation for next year, which is not coming out until October. But all things being equal, based on the inflationary environment, we have pitched our suggested increase at 5% from a number of reasons. A lot of dioceses are going higher than that. Absolutely, you would have seen in the budget, in the report and in the resolution, some of the benchmarks I looked at. However, we don't know what the future holds, and we wanted to kind of reach a compromise that will give a decent increase to people, but without creating an issue in the future where we don't know what's going to happen with the economic environment in 2024 and beyond. And so we really felt like we needed a little bit of flexibility to move. Another consideration for us was that the congregations, who are the people who pay assessment, their tithing, their pledges into our parishes, we can't know that they're experiencing pay increases at the rate that some of the national figures suggest. And we felt that to impose something beyond 5% could be quite onerous for them, because ultimately their contributions fund the expense budget of the parishes. You've seen the statistics that I've quoted, so I don't need to go through all of those. We felt that 5% was an acceptable compromise. We are at the lower end across the diocese that I could glean, as to what they were doing. Some of them were up really high, 8-9% in some cases. But, if you commit to that now, it doesn't leave you much room to move in the future. Last year's increase was 3.838%. We think that 5% is a decent, prudent increase that will hopefully make cost of living adjustments without compromising the future.
Thank you. Gracie, are you seeing any question indications?
I'm not seeing any digital hands raised. Now I'm looking at people's video screens to see if there are any physical hands waving around in video streams. And I am also not seeing any of those. So if I'm wrong, please pipe up.
I was trying to raise my hand. I'm not sure how to do it.
Go for it, Tom.
Tom Reeder from Holy Cross, Wisconsin Dells.
How did the minimums, current minimums, compare with other provinces or dioceses throughout the United States that we currently have? I mean, so
very, very good question. I have researched that as extensively as I can based on publicly available data. The Church Pension Group have provided to us what they call the Bishop's Report, and also the 2020 Church Pension Group Compensation Report. However, that report does not really address the needs that we have in terms of setting compensation bands within the traditional way this has worked. I had a meeting today for an hour with the Church Pension Group around my express intention to get far more sophisticated analysis for us around comparable dioceses with a multi-dimensional focus on what compensation looks like with our peers across the entire country. The Church Pension Group's 2020 compensation report only looks at median salaries within the compensation bands. It looks at those bands via gender. It looks at it via province, but that doesn't really help me in trying to develop a more accurate model for the true market value of clergy compensation, given the demographics of the state of Wisconsin. And I'll give you a little bit of background on that. For example, if you are a clergy person in a large church, I'm talking a church with more than $300,000 of revenue, with quite sophisticated operations, with multiple sources of income, your job is quite different from the job of a clergy person in a smaller parish. Let's say that parish has $150,000 of operating income. Yet, our inherited compensation model is purely based on post-ordination experience. So what we're trying to do, working with the Church Pension Group, and they do tell us that we're trailblazers in this attempt to try and make our model more sophisticated, is that we are looking at things like demographic matches in capital cities, Milwaukee, Madison. What cities are like that? Cost of living. What's the cost of living in Madison or Milwaukee? Where are our counterparts across the country? What are the salaries for resource-sized churches, the really large churches we have across the country where the demographics match to us? Now, that's something that we're working really, really hard on. We're hoping to get some kind of result on that this year. For now, we have inherited a fairly simplistic model for clergy compensation where every year it's looked at, and the salary bands are based on post-ordination experience. Every year we look at whether we're going to impose a cost of living adjustment on that. And so you can look at last year's clergy compensation resolution, and the bands will go up by the cost of living adjustment. Now that model, which is absolutely, and I acknowledge it, too simplistic, which is why I'm trying to get it changed for the future, but that we're going to be looking at 2023 for this. It does not take account of the demographics of the placement of the clergy person. So if you're a clergy person in a really large church in Madison, you're going to have a completely different demographic from a clergy person in a small, town or city, somewhere that's not in one of the major metropolises of the state. So we are working on that to come up for the future with a far better model. And the Church Pension Group is very interested in helping us to develop this. They can see the need for it. They've got access to lots of data, but there are privacy issues around how much of that raw data they can disseminate to me directly. I did ask for it, but I was told no. But they are looking at that. And I think that in the future, we're going to come up with something that's a little bit more three-dimensional around this. At the moment, what you see there is that a clergy person, or sorry, I should say cleric, a cleric's compensation is completely benchmarked based on years of experience. So the assumption is that the more experienced the person is, the higher their market value. What I'm trying to ascertain, and I haven't got that information as yet, I will not have it for this year, but I will have it for next year, is looking at not just that person's experience, but also the size of their job. So if you want to think of it like this, a priest with 20 years experience in a parish with a operating revenue of 150,000 ought to be paid differently from a priest with 20 years experience in a really large parish with $500,000 worth of operating revenue, because that's quite a different job, right? So the market value of those jobs are very, very different, irrespective of their post-ordination experience. So forgive me that I can't give you the answer tonight. It's something that's come up that we've all been looking at. The executive team has acknowledged that the need for more sophistication and nuance in our compensation paradigm, but we've been working with what we inherited from the past.
All right, thank you. Okay, Gracie, are we looking good? Okay. I'm aware of two other items. I know I said 4, but I'm aware of 2 other items. One, I believe, is a second vote this year on allowing the definition of clergy with regards to the standing committee, right? That it's not only priests, but priests and deacons may serve on the standing committee. And I think that one was introduced last year and needs a second vote. Janet Troutman Miller, can you just confirm that and say a sentence or two if you feel so moved? This is an area, it seems, where we are sort of out of the norm, and I think we're just correcting what ought to be the case.
That is the case. We are, we're not quite sure if it's out of the norm or not. There's actually quite a few dioceses that still have that. We don't know why the case is, but we hope to rectify it. So yes, that will be the second hearing of that. And hopefully we'll be able to put it into action immediately afterwards too. So that the wording has always been that lay people and priests can serve on the standing committee, and the wording will be changed to lay and clergy.
All right, thank you. I think what remains then, if I'm not mistaken, is the budget. Is that correct? And for a preview of that, I will turn our meeting back to Caroline to sort of give us a walkthrough of the budget that Executive Council has approved.
I would just need to, well, has everyone had a chance to look at the budget papers? Because I don't want to just take you through something that you've already looked at. So if you've got some questions, perhaps it's more productive that you just ask those questions, if any.
Gracie, are you seeing any responses? I see a head or two shaking no. Maybe we should make.
I have not, Tom Curtis, St. Albans, I haven't had a chance to review it.
Okay.
Okay, well, I don't want to spend a lot of time unnecessarily.
I've had no chance to review it.
Right, okay. Gracie, could you allow me to share my screen?
Yeah, I think if you go ahead and try to do it, then it should prompt me to let you, but I can't figure out how to just let you do it off the bat.
Let me try.
Oh, there we go. Okay, you're good.
Is it up there?
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And let me just jump in real quick here at the beginning and just say that I note the time is about 6:35, and I don't expect that Caroline's going to get really in depth here, but I think just to sort of walk you through this, and then if there are more in-depth questions, we can certainly entertain them. Okay, Caroline, go ahead.
I think I'll just do a very quick summary. Ultimately, please do take time to look at the detail, but ultimately, the main features of this budget are that the total expense base or total, resources that we are expending as a diocese are pretty similar to last year. But one of the major changes is that expense has been moved out of overhead, if you will, into program expenses. So versus the last year's budget, we have taken out almost $250,000 out of the office of the bishop, which includes people like me and Gracie and Bishop Lee. And we have put that money towards expenditure on programs. So congregational development, Christian formation, campus ministry, global ministry. The Haiti Partnership is a major initiative. And I think that one of the interesting things about the budget after that, that complete, calibration of the focus based on, the current administration, is to look at, what do other dioceses comparable to us look like? And so I'm just going to take you through what that is. Let me just scroll down. So I'm going to go down to some graphs. You can look at all the details if you want to. So if you look at 10 other dioceses who are comparable to us, and I include Fond du Lac because they are our Wisconsin diocesan counterpart. They're a lot smaller than us, but I include them here because of the currency of the comparison, because of the impending review of reunification of the Wisconsin dioceses. If you look at the bishop as a percentage of total expenses, we're the second lowest out of anyone in the country who is comparable to us. Indianapolis is a little bit less, and then Milwaukee's the second lowest as a percentage of the money that we spend. The next graph looks at office and general office expenses, so all of the infrastructure sorts of things that we have to spend, and administrative stuff, and that's people, well, that is literally me, Sarah, and Gracie. We are the second lowest. So as a percentage of total expenses, the only diocese who spend proportionately less than us is Indianapolis. All of the others spend relatively more as a percentage of their total costs on their general admin and office expenses. Another thing that we do have to note is support of retired staff. So we've had people retire in 2022. There have been retirement payments to those people. Some of those will flow through into next year as well. But this shows you the graph as to how that sort of flows out across the comparative diocese versus Milwaukee. Of course, in 2024, we won't have any retirement associated payments. So our percentage of, expenses will be zero in 2024. Infrastructure costs as a percentage of total expenses, we are the third lowest. You can see that, there's quite a variability there in terms of the cost structures. Part of our expenses, obviously, maintaining our presence at Nicholson House. That's something that we are in discussions with around how we can reduce that cost. And I think the future model is going to look a little bit different by the 2024 budget than the current one. But for now, with all the other moving parts in what's going on, we're just forecasting that things will remain as they are, but nonetheless, we are still the third lowest out of all the comparable dioceses. So that I think is quite interesting to look at. This chart here looks at the composition of revenue. So what percentage of revenue comes from where? So with Milwaukee, 67% comes from assessments upon congregations. You can see it's really quite variable. And obviously a lot of that has to do with investment and endowment, income that the various dioceses have, but it's always interesting to look at, what the different dioceses have. Here you can see a graph around expense composition. So like, where are we spending most of our money? Milwaukee is spending 45.36% of its complete expenditure on programs. So there's only one diocese out of the comparisons who are slightly more than us, and that is East Tennessee. none of the other dioceses are quite as high as we are in terms of, you know, what we're spending on our programs. And so I guess, you know, the flavor of this budget is just after, you know, the advent of the provisional bishop midway through last year, and Father Scott Liana as the canon for ministries, all of the work that's occurred since that point in time. And when I joined the staff late last year, is that our focus is 100% on efficiencies, reducing expenses that are overhead, and really understanding our resources and how those can be deployed towards programs, ministry programs globally and within Wisconsin. And you ought to know that our global programs, our global reconciliation programs, eclipse anything anybody else in this country is doing. We have a partnership model with a nonprofit in Haiti to focus on working out what the future of our participation in all of the obligations we have towards the people of Jeanette and Haiti are. And this is coming to the attention of the National Church because it's a new paradigm there. We are institution to institution connected. We have a contract, and we are really pursuing a model that will achieve sustainability and equitable outcomes for the people in Haiti, where we've had a 40-year partnership with them. So that is really the flavor of our budget.
All right, thank you very much, Caroline. Gracie, are you seeing any hands, any digital or actual hands being raised? If anybody has questions, please make them known, speak up.
As of yet, not seeing anything.
All right. I think when you examine it more closely, those of you who haven't yet had a chance, I think it's you'll find it to be pretty straightforward, as Caroline mentions, pretty budget, or excuse me, ministry focused. And in between now and the convention, I know that Caroline would certainly welcome questions or comments as what if you do have any. The purpose of tonight was to show you the budget that the Executive Council looked at in a more in-depth manner and gave their unanimous support to. Okay. There was one question earlier in the chat with regards to support of deacons. Valerie McAuliffe, was that question from you?
Yes.
And would you like to just simply ask that rather than me looking for it in the chat? I'm not quite sure I understood it anyway. So go ahead.
Don mentioned in that the compensation not only afforded them access to the pension fund, but some other things like Credo and other gatherings.
Yes, that's true. That's
So
the main benefit. I mean, that is the main benefit to deacons, is really access to Credo and planning for tomorrow.
Okay.
For that, yeah.
So we still want to compensate those old guys.
Well, I mean, I think this is a pension fund. I'm not a pension fund expert, but I'm not sure that the pension fund will take. Somebody will have to speak to how are even priests compensated after the age of 72 and how that's regarded by the pension fund, and what their access are to those programs, because they have different. I'm certainly not an expert on being retired at all yet, so I know that the relationship to the programming for the pension fund changes once one hits 72 as well, even for priests. So I think it's worth some investigation if those things would even be available for deacons over 72, or what would be the mechanism. So
Although Carolyn says that there's special spots in the pension fund for those folks. So
Yeah,
thank
And
you.
Bobby Kraft notes that Credo has a special unit for retired clergy. We can see if that is applicable to this.
yeah.
Um,
I think that's important because people like Chuck should get something for all those years of being a deacon in this diocese.
Sticking with that.
Okay, so that's an so that's an open question. Deacon Greg Schneider, your question, it looks like, was answered by Caroline as to where support for Haiti is listed in the budget. All right, anything else? Gracie, you seeing anything?
Is there,
Tom Reader?
is there anything available that, for instance, Haiti, we alone give Haiti $1,000 a year from our parish and another $1,000 to Nuala every year?
We so appreciated receiving that. That goes directly to Arpshire, our non-profit partner in Haiti, for disbursement to support the school and clinic in Haiti, in the village of Jeannette.
Does that answer your question, Tom?
No, I wasn't finished.
Okay, go ahead.
My question is there any way we know what the total that's given to between the diocese and the individual parishes givings?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Tom?
He would like to know, Caroline, is there any way that we can publicize the total amount given to the Haiti partnership? In other words, I think now that this is up and running, Tom is asking for some more information, reports, if things like that will be coming out regularly.
Absolutely, they will be coming your way. I have to just give you a context here. I am the sole diocesan finance resource, right? So every single thing to do with the finances of the diocese, dealing with the parishes, the diocesan financials, Haiti, everything. I'm the only person, the only resource to do that work. I've been working through a really large backlog. On my list to get to soon is to update all of the donor records for Haiti, and so that I can absolutely provide going forwards, not only historic information, but also ongoing information back to people. It's just a matter of being one person, and there's only so many hours in the day.
Yep. All right. Does that speak to your question, Tom?
Yes, but I have a question about Nuala then is what kind of arrangement does the diocese have with Nuala? It's not a partnership, it's just money that's given to the diocese, is that right?
We don't have a formal contractual relationship with Nuala at all. It's a companion diocese, and donations go straight to the sisters in Nuala. So, you know, we do have a budget also from a diocesan perspective, but any donations you send for Nuala get sent straight over to Nuala.
And I suspect a report about that can be generated at some point down the road as well.
Yeah, it would be nice to hear.
Absolutely, but also I just want to just give you a little bit of context around Nuala. Neil Radke, who has been a massive champion of Nuala for many, many decades, he ordinarily writes directly to all the donors. So I always send him the checks, scans of all the checks that we receive. So he does know that you, Tom, that your church recently donated money. Yeah, Holy Cross, donated money. So he knows that. He's got a copy of the check, and he will be sending you a letter.
All right. Gracie, are you seeing anything else?
Doesn't look like it.
All right, folks, and I note a note in the chat comment, Tom, to you. Tom, part of the issue in Haiti is the dysfunction of the church there. We can't work through the church, so we have contracted with another organization. That is what Caroline was referring to when she said this is a new model. So yes, I today just added some editing to an upcoming newsletter that's going to be coming out with regards to the Haiti partnership, and good things are afoot there, and certainly stay posted for some good news. Literally some good news. Good news is nice. All right. If there is not anything else tonight, I want to thank you all. And I wonder, just because I can see her right in the middle of my screen, if I could ask the Reverend Bobby Kraft to offer a closing prayer tonight, if there be no further business for this meeting. Seeing none and hearing nothing from Gracie, who's been monitoring the conversation. Bobby, I did not ask you to do this in advance, so I appreciate your willingness to step up and offer us a prayer as we head into the rest of tonight.
Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Gracious God, we thank you for the opportunity to review information as we look to where you are guiding us and the path we will take to live into your vision for the kingdom, as it is expressed through the peoples and parishes and life of the Diocese of Milwaukee. Keep us ever mindful of the needs of others. Help us to discern your vision for us moving ahead. We give thanks to all who have submitted resolutions, and for all of the work that goes into those who are nominated, those who have put together the financials, those who have reviewed it already and presented us with data that we will move forward on in October. Grant us peace this evening as we go about our lives, and bring us together in October to celebrate the mission of this diocese. All this we ask in your son's name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. And on behalf of our diocesan staff, those joining us tonight, Financial Controller Caroline Sen, Administrative Officer Gracie Van Spankeren, Communications Officer Sarah Bittner, and myself, Canon for Ministries. What a blessing and honor it is to be of service to you in any way that we can. And so please continue to contact us. Let us know how we can do that. All right. Our provisional bishop should be back from Italy in a day or two. And we look forward to his return. All right, everybody. God bless. Peace.
God bless. Good night.
I